It's 2 a.m. You're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, your mind racing with thoughts you can't control. You've tried everything: meditation apps, white noise, warm milk, counting sheep, but nothing works. Your body is exhausted, but your mind refuses to shut down. What if I told you that Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, discovered the real reason you can't sleep over a century ago? And it's not what you think. The answer isn't in your mattress, your room temperature, or your bedtime routine. It's buried deep in your unconscious mind, fighting a war you don't even know you're waging. Every night, as you try to drift off, your psyche becomes a battlefield where repressed thoughts, forbidden desires, and unresolved conflicts clash with your conscious mind's desperate attempt to maintain control. Freud called this phenomenon the return of the repressed, and he discovered that sleep is when your mental defenses are at their weakest. The thoughts, feelings, and memories you've been pushing down all day suddenly surge to the surface, demanding attention. Your insomnia isn't a sleep disorder. It's your unconscious mind's way of saying, "We need to talk." This isn't just psychological theory. Modern neuroscience has proven that Freud was eerily accurate about what happens in your brain during sleep. Dr. Matthew Walker's research at UC Berkeley shows that REM sleep is when your brain processes emotional memories, consolidates experiences, and literally rewires neural pathways. But here's the crucial part. If you're avoiding or suppressing emotional content during the day, your brain has to work overtime at night to process what you've been ignoring. Think about your worst nights of insomnia. What was happening in your life? Chances are you were dealing with stress, conflict, or emotional turmoil that you were trying to push through without fully processing. Your conscious mind said, "I don't have time for this," but your unconscious mind disagreed. Freud's masterwork, The Interpretation of Dreams, revealed that dreams aren't random neural firing. They're the royal road to the unconscious. But what happens when you can't get to sleep to dream? Your unconscious doesn't just disappear. It finds other ways to get your attention, and one of the most common is to simply keep you awake until you're forced to confront what you've been avoiding. This is why traditional sleep hygiene often fails. You can perfect your sleep environment, eliminate caffeine, and follow every expert recommendation. But if you're carrying unresolved psychological tension, your mind will find a way to keep you conscious. Sleep isn't just a physical process, it's a psychological one. Freud discovered that the human psyche is divided into three parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id represents your basic desires and impulses, everything you want but can't have. The superego represents your moral conscience, everything you think you should do. The ego is caught in the middle, trying to balance these competing forces while navigating reality. During the day, your ego works overtime to maintain this balance. You suppress inappropriate thoughts, control your impulses, and present a socially acceptable version of yourself to the world. But this constant effort is exhausting. By nighttime, your ego is depleted, and that's when the real war begins. As you lie in bed, your defenses down, the ID starts making demands. Suddenly, you're thinking about that conversation you had with your boss, replaying it obsessively. You're remembering that person you're attracted to but can't pursue. You're feeling anger you've been suppressing, anxiety you've been avoiding, or grief you've been postponing. Meanwhile, your superego is working overtime, criticizing these thoughts and feelings. "You shouldn't be thinking about this," it says. "You should be sleeping. You have work tomorrow. You're being ridiculous." This internal conflict creates what Freud called psychic tension, a state of mental agitation that makes sleep impossible. The modern world has made this problem exponentially worse. We live in what Freud would have called a civilization of discontents, a society that requires us to suppress more and more of our natural impulses while providing fewer and fewer outlets for healthy expression. We're expected to be productive, positive, and available 24/7, leaving little time for the kind of psychological processing that Freud knew was essential for mental health. Social media compounds this problem by creating what psychologists call emotional labor, the constant effort to present a curated version of yourself while suppressing authentic feelings. Every post, every comment, every interaction requires you to manage your image, control your responses, and maintain social harmony. This is exhausting work that your unconscious mind needs to process during sleep. But here's where it gets interesting. Freud discovered that the unconscious mind doesn't just create problems, it also tries to solve them. Your insomnia isn't just random suffering. It's your psyche's attempt to force you to pay attention to something important that you've been ignoring. The thoughts that keep you awake aren't meaningless anxiety. They're clues. Your mind is trying to tell you something about what you need, what you're avoiding, or what you need to change in your life. The problem is that most people try to shut down these thoughts instead of listening to them. Freud's concept of free association, allowing thoughts to flow without censorship, was designed to help people access these unconscious messages. But you don't need to be in therapy to benefit from this principle. You can use your sleepless nights as opportunities for self-discovery instead of sources of frustration. The key is to stop fighting your racing mind and start listening to it. Instead of trying to force sleep, allow yourself to explore what's really bothering you. What are you worried about? What are you avoiding? What do you need that you're not getting? These middle-of-the-night revelations often contain the seeds of genuine solutions to daytime problems. This doesn't mean you should never try to sleep. It means recognizing that sometimes insomnia is a symptom of psychological work that needs to be done. Your unconscious mind is trying to help you process experiences, resolve conflicts, and integrate emotions that you haven't had time to deal with during your busy day. Modern sleep research confirms Freud's insights in remarkable ways. Studies show that people who suppress emotions during the day have more fragmented sleep and take longer to fall asleep. Conversely, people who process emotions through therapy, journaling, or meaningful conversations often see dramatic improvements in sleep quality without any changes to their sleep environment or habits. The breakthrough came when Freud realized that sleep disturbances weren't just symptoms of mental illness. They were the mind's natural attempt to heal itself. In his clinical work, he observed that patients who couldn't sleep were often on the verge of psychological breakthroughs. Their insomnia was a sign that their unconscious was ready to reveal something important. This is why forcing sleep through medication or suppression often backfires. You're essentially telling your unconscious mind to shut up at the exact moment it's trying to communicate something vital. Freud discovered that the most effective approach was to work with the sleeplessness, not against it. The concept of dream work that Freud developed applies even when you can't dream because you can't sleep. Your racing thoughts at 3 a.m. are performing the same function that dreams would. They're trying to process emotional content that your conscious mind has been avoiding. The difference is that without the symbolic language of dreams, your unconscious has to be more direct, which is why sleepless thoughts often feel so intense and overwhelming. Modern sleep clinics are beginning to recognize what Freud knew intuitively, that treating insomnia without addressing underlying psychological conflicts is like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone. Dr. Colin Espy's research at Oxford shows that cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is most effective when it includes exploration of emotional patterns and stress responses, not just sleep hygiene. But here's what most people don't understand. Freud discovered that some insomnia is actually healthy. He called it signal anxiety, your mind's way of alerting you to problems that need attention. When you're facing a major life decision, processing grief, or dealing with relationship conflicts, your unconscious mind may deliberately keep you awake to force you to confront these issues. Think about the last time you had a major decision to make. Did you sleep well while you were avoiding the decision? Probably not. But once you made the choice and committed to action, sleep likely returned naturally. This isn't coincidence. It's your psyche's way of ensuring you don't sleepwalk through important life moments. Freud's patient case studies reveal fascinating patterns. People who suffered from chronic insomnia often experienced dramatic improvements when they stopped trying to sleep and started paying attention to their nighttime thoughts. One patient, a businessman who couldn't sleep after his father's death, discovered that his insomnia was connected to unresolved guilt about their relationship. Once he processed these feelings, his sleep returned naturally. The key insight is that your unconscious mind operates on a different timeline than your conscious mind. You might think you've moved on from a traumatic experience, ended a relationship, or resolved a conflict, but your unconscious might still be processing these events. Sleep disruption is often a sign that psychological work is still happening beneath the surface. This is why people often experience insomnia during periods of apparent stability. You got the promotion, the relationship is going well, your finances are stable. So why can't you sleep? Freud would say it's because success often triggers unconscious fears, unresolved conflicts, or identity shifts that need to be processed. The phenomenon of Sunday night insomnia perfectly illustrates this principle. It's not just about dreading Monday morning. It's about the deeper existential anxiety that comes from spending your life in ways that don't align with your authentic desires. Your unconscious mind is trying to tell you something about how you're living, but you're too busy to listen during the day. Freud's concept of repetition compulsion explains why the same thoughts tend to cycle through your mind night after night. You're not just overthinking, you're unconsciously trying to master traumatic or challenging experiences by revisiting them mentally. Your mind is literally practicing different responses, exploring alternative outcomes, and gradually integrating difficult experiences into your psychological framework. This is why writing down your nighttime thoughts can be so powerful. You're not just getting them out of your head, you're helping your unconscious mind complete the processing work it's trying to do. Freud encouraged patients to keep dream journals, but a sleepless thoughts journal can serve the same function. The practice is simple but profound. Instead of fighting your racing mind, grab a notebook and write down everything you're thinking about. Don't edit, don't analyze, just transcribe. You'll often find that after 10-15 minutes of this free-form writing, your mind naturally settles and sleep becomes possible. But the real magic happens when you read these journals later. Patterns emerge. You start to see the underlying themes that your unconscious mind has been trying to communicate. The work problem isn't just about work, it's about authority issues from childhood. The relationship anxiety isn't just about your partner, it's about your fear of abandonment. The financial worry isn't just about money, it's about your sense of self-worth. Freud's most radical insight was that symptoms aren't problems to be eliminated. They're communications to be understood. Your insomnia isn't malfunctioning. It's functioning exactly as it's designed to, trying to get your attention and force you to address psychological conflicts that you've been avoiding. This perspective transforms insomnia from a curse into a teacher. Instead of asking, "How can I make this stop?" you start asking, "What is this trying to tell me?" This shift in perspective often leads to insights that not only improve sleep, but transform entire life patterns. The pharmaceutical approach to insomnia essentially puts your unconscious mind to sleep, along with your conscious mind. While this can provide temporary relief, it prevents the psychological processing that your mind is trying to accomplish. Freud would argue that chemically induced sleep is like putting a gag on your unconscious. It stops the symptoms, but prevents the cure. This doesn't mean medication is never appropriate, but it suggests that the most sustainable approach to insomnia involves understanding and working with your unconscious mind rather than simply shutting it down. The goal isn't to eliminate all psychological discomfort. It's to develop a healthy relationship with your inner world. Now that you've seen insomnia not as a weakness but as your unconscious trying to be heard, it's time to learn how to turn those restless nights into opportunities for healing. The first step is to honor the sleepless mind rather than battle it. When you lie awake and thoughts whirl like a storm, don't flick on the light. Instead, welcome them as messengers. Acknowledge the emotion hiding behind the chatter: fear, grief, anger, guilt. Instead of pushing these feelings aside, let yourself feel them fully for a moment. This simple shift from resistance to acceptance reduces the psychic tension Freud described and creates space for your mind to settle. Once you've paused and recognized the dominant feeling, reach for a pen and notebook by your bed. Free write whatever arises without judgment or editing. Freud's free association technique isn't just for the therapist's couch. It works beautifully at 3 a.m. Record fragmented images, half-formed memories, wild fantasies, or that persistent worry you've buried all day. Give your unconscious permission to speak unfiltered. You'll discover that writing down these thoughts often dissolves their power. What once felt like a relentless barrage becomes a coherent narrative you can address consciously when morning comes. After free writing, try a guided visualization exercise inspired by dream interpretation. With your eyes closed, imagine entering a quiet theater in your mind. On its screen, project the imagery you just wrote down. Perhaps a scene from childhood, a symbol you don't immediately understand, or that conversation replaying in your head. Watch it unfold without intervening. Notice which characters catch your attention, or which colors and sounds stand out. This inner theater becomes a safe container where your psyche can reveal layered meanings without triggering defense mechanisms. If visualization feels awkward, another approach is to personify the restless part of your mind. Imagine your fear or guilt as a personified character sitting next to you on the bed. What does it want? What does it fear? What would happen if you simply listened rather than silenced it? This dialogue echoes Freud's technique of making the unconscious conscious. Treat your nighttime thoughts like delicate fragments of a story that need to be understood, not enemies to be defeated. By engaging in these practices regularly, you cultivate what modern psychologists call emotional regulation skills. Studies using functional MRI show that actively labeling and exploring emotions reduces activation in the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, and strengthens connections to the prefrontal cortex, where rational thought resides. In practical terms, you calm the fight-or-flight reflex that feeds insomnia and build resilience for daytime stress as well. As dawn approaches and your writing or visualization ends, resist the urge to judge yourself for being awake. Instead, close your eyes and rehearse the act of letting go. Picture yourself handing the day's insights to your conscious mind as if placing them on a shelf. Promise your unconscious you will return to these notes when you're fully alert. Then allow the body to drift, trusting that you've acknowledged the hidden messages. Often, this final ritual is enough to coax sleep back. When morning light filters through your window, don't toss the notebook aside. Review what you recorded and look for patterns, recurring themes, persistent anxieties, images that seem symbolic. Over days and weeks, these patterns form a map of unresolved conflicts and core desires. This mapping process reflects Freud's notion that self-knowledge is the route to symptom relief. By tracing these threads, you convert random nocturnal disturbances into coherent personal insights. Integrate these nocturnal revelations into your daily life. Schedule a brief journaling session or conversation with a trusted friend or therapist to process what emerged overnight. Addressing the issues consciously during the day reduces their nighttime resurgence. You'll notice fewer sleepless hours and a growing sense of psychological wholeness that Freud believed was the ultimate cure for neurosis. Remember, the pharmaceutical approach to insomnia may silence symptoms, but it also silences your unconscious guide. By learning to listen, write, visualize, and dialogue with your inner world, you transform insomnia from an enemy into an ally. You reclaim the night as a realm of discovery rather than defeat. The hidden reason you can't sleep at night isn't bad luck or a faulty brain. It's your psyche's last effort to process what you've been avoiding. By honoring this process, you not only restore restful nights, but also deepen self-understanding and well-being. Freud showed us that the path to sleep lies through the unconscious. Now the choice is yours. Continue battling your own mind, or start the journey of listening, writing, and integrating what it's been trying to tell you all along.